Let's get started. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about the key points of phrasal verbs. First of all, what is a phrasal verb? Well, a phrasal verb is a verb plus a preposition that's used as an idiom. For example, put out. Put out. Put is the verb and out is the preposition. And put out means to extinguish, like to extinguish a fire or extinguish a cigarette. And so put out is a phrasal verb, but you'll notice that it has an idiomatic usage because put means place something somewhere and out means like outside or out of the room. So put out the fire doesn't mean move the fire outside, it means extinguish the fire. All right, so again, a phrasal verb is a verb plus a preposition that's used as an idiom. Next, in some cases, we can separate the verb and the preposition when a direct object is used. Here's an example. Turn on the light. Turn on the light. You could also say, turn the light on. So when you have a direct object, that object can often go after the preposition or before it. Turn on the light. Turn the light on. If you use a pronoun to replace the noun, in other words, a pronoun to replace that direct object, for example, turn on the lamp, we could say it for the lamp, and it is a pronoun. So when you use a pronoun, the rule is the pronoun comes between the verb and the preposition. So turn it on. But you can't say turn on it. Here's another example. Tomorrow, my boss is coming to the airport and I need to pick up my boss. I need to pick my boss up. I need to pick her up. So those are the three possibilities, but I can't say pick up her. Next, some phrasal verbs are not separable. For example, the phrasal verb call on. Call on means to visit. I could say, I called on my friend Steve when I was in Miami. I called on Steve. It's not possible to say, I called Steve on. So call on is not separable. As you go through the lessons in this course, for every phrasal verb, I'm going to let you know whether the phrasal verb is separable or not separable, so you don't need to worry about that right now. The next idea is that some phrasal verbs have a fixed position. In other words, the direct object comes between the verb and the preposition, and that's the only place that you can put the object. One example is bounce off. Bounce off means to tell someone your idea in order to get their feedback or their reaction. So I could say, I bounced my idea off the boss. I bounced my idea off the boss. My idea is the direct object, but it comes between the verb bounce and the preposition off. I bounced my idea off the boss. In summary, there are three different kinds of phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs which are separable, phrasal verbs which are not separable, and phrasal verbs which are considered to be fixed. In other words, the direct object comes between the verb and the preposition. And finally, a lot of my students ask me, Michael, why do you English speakers use phrasal verbs? Why can't you just use the verb? Well, that's a great question, and you may be wondering that yourself. Here's an example. Please put out your cigarette. Please extinguish your cigarette. So put out and extinguish have the exact same meaning. But For native English speakers, and especially Americans, we prefer to use phrasal verbs when there's one that's available. And so it would sound really, really strange and unnatural if you saw someone smoking and you asked them, "Excuse me, could you extinguish your cigarette?" Because we don't really talk that way. We usually use the phrasal verb, "Hey, excuse me, can you put out your cigarette?" That's much more natural. And in fact, there are a lot of phrasal verbs that don't have any other verb to substitute for them. Here's an example. Can you hang up your jacket? Hang up your jacket. I don't know another word that you could use to substitute for hang up, except you could make a long sentence like, could you kindly put your jacket on the hanger in the closet? But it would be more natural to say, can you hang up your jacket? Can you turn on the light? Turn on the light. Now, turn on means to start the flow of electricity so that it will reach the light. I don't know any other verb that could be substituted for turn on in this case. So please turn on the light. That's the only way to say that. So I guess that's why English speakers love phrasal verbs so much. All right, so these are the key points about phrasal verbs that you need to know. Next up, we're going to move to the next section and we're going to start learning the first set of 10 phrasal verbs. I'll see you there.